How's it going, everyone? As always, God bless you and thank you for being here. I'm Gage and this is Candy Girl Aquatics. If you're new to my channel, hit that subscribe button and tap that notification bell. This is where I talk about all things reefing, but more importantly, where I share the information I've gathered on my tank with you guys to help you become better hobbyists at this hobby we call reefing. For those of you that are new, this is going to be the episode 1 of my beginner saltwater setup videos, if you will. I've wanted to do a beginner guide for quite a while now, and because I'm resetting up and redoing my 60-gallon cube myself, I figured it'd be a perfect time. Also, if you're new to the channel, please, before you continue and watch this video, maybe back out and scroll through some of my other videos so you guys can get a feel of who I am, the experience I do have in this hobby, and make sure that I'm somebody that's going to be suited for your needs. So for those of you that have been with the channel, you know that I've had to reset up and redo my 60-gallon cube. So here's where we are today. I got the rock work in. I'm really liking the way everything's set up. I'm getting lots of light everywhere. This is going to be great from when I'm growing my SPS and LPS corals in here. Some stuff is going to move around, but I'm going to wait because I want to show you guys, in detail later once I put the coral in here, kind of the ideas that I have of where everything's going to go. I think you guys are going to like it. So starting off with our beginner series videos, it's going to be a perfect time to talk about how to cycle an aquarium. Now, I do have to apologize. My 60-gallon cube that was running before had GSP and coralline algae and stuff growing all over the back glass. But as you can see, everything's been scrubbed clean since we're redoing the setup. So you can see those nasty little wires hanging from the back. I'll probably have to put, some type of a backing up until I can start getting that coral growth in here again, because trust me, I don't like the looks of the wires either. All right, so let's assume that you guys have already got all the equipment that you need. We're going to skip the equipment. We'll save equipment for a different video. This video is simply going to be on cycling your system. So how do we cycle a system? First thing you guys got to do is get sand and rock. Now let me break down some of the terminology. When people use the words live sand and live rock, they're simply referring to sand and rock that has live nitrifying bacteria on it. You can do this a couple of ways. The main way is go out and buy live sand, which is already prepackaged. That's pretty much the only way that I know of how to get live sand. Unless you want to go out and buy a cheap form of sand, rinse it, and then put it into your system to try to save money and hope that bacteria grows on it. I really don't recommend that. Just go to the store, spend 25 bucks, get yourself 20 pounds of live sand or however much you need for your system. That's the best way to do it. As far as the rock goes, you can either use, live rock that somebody either brought in from the ocean or that your local fish store has, sat in a vat full of water and added bacteria or fish to colonize bacteria, thus calling it live rock because it's wet rock that already has bacteria on it. Or you can do a very successful tank by just going out and buying dry rock, which is you just grab off the shelf. It's dry. It has no bacteria in it. You put it in your tank and allow it to start colonizing bacteria. I've done tanks both ways. The majority of the rock that is in here is dry rock. Actually, to be quite honest, it's all dry rock. The rock that's around the bottom of my structure started off as live rock, but I left it in storage in bags for at least a week, so I'm sure it's probably all dry rock. Now, there's probably no living bacteria on it. So, hypothetically, everything that I have in my system is dry rock. But I'm still going to be successful, and I'll show you guys how. So after you get your sand and your rock, the next thing that you have to do is start building up that biological load, that nitrifying bacteria. There's a couple different theories of thought on this. I'm going to share them with you, and then I'm going to tell you guys what I think is the best and what I think is going to be the most successful for you and what I've personally had success with. So you've probably heard before that you have to let your tank, quote, cycle for several weeks to a couple of months before you can add anything to it. While I'm not going to say that this is completely wrong, I do disagree with it, and I will share why. If you leave a tank like mine is with no fish of any kind in it, how is the bacteria supposed to get what it needs in order to thrive, survive, and reproduce? There's no food for it. This is why when people leave their tanks set like this and they go, oh yeah, I'm cycling my tank, and then they add a fish to it, they start getting ammonia spikes, they start getting diatoms or algae, stuff just ends up going bad. Well, it's because now that you've added that fish, which is the ammonia source, nope, now you're actually cycling your tank when the rest of the time you were just sitting there lighting water and rock and not doing anything else. So I don't agree with the whole fill your tank up and let it set. The other thing that you can do is called phantom feeding, where you fill your tank up, you let it set, there's no fish in it, you've got your sand and your rock, and every day you add a little bit of food to the system. What this is supposed to do is as the food breaks down, it creates wastes or ammonias or nitrates, and then the bacteria starts to feed off of that. Why I don't do that and why I will never do that is because while yes, it could provide an effective ammonia source for bacteria, one has to wonder how effective because it's going to take several days to maybe even a week or so before all that food is like actually broken down. So meantime, you're just going to have a bunch of food in the bottom of the sand bed rotting away. And what is that doing? It's creating high nitrates, it's creating high phosphates. And if you don't know, phosphates lead to algae growth. So you're just setting yourself up for bad things to happen. So, how do I cycle a tank and how do I recommend from my success of what I've done on how to cycle a tank? Get your live sand, get your rock. I don't care if it's live rock or dry rock, it doesn't matter. The next thing that you're going to need is a bottle of live nitrifying bacteria. You can choose any brand that you want. Then you're going to go out and you're going to get yourself some type of a hardy fish. I love cycling tanks with clownfish. And more often than not, people are going to add a clownfish to their system. It's kind of a staple in the hobby. If you're somebody that doesn't want a clownfish, then research, what fish you do want and select the hardiest fish out of that group, and that's what you're going to use. It's a very straightforward and simple process. Once your salinity and your temperature is where they are supposed to be, which for you new beginners, you want a salinity of 1.026 and then a temperature of about 78 degrees. That's Fahrenheit. Go ahead and add your fish, and at the same time you add your fish, add your live bacteria. Do not add any inverts like snails, shrimp, crustaceans. They probably will not survive the ammonia cycle. So add your fish, whatever hardy fish that you're going to be using. I recommend clownfish. And then at the same exact time as you add your fish, start adding your live nitrifying bacteria based on the instructions on the bottle. Continue to add that live bacteria every single day or whatever the instructions on the bottle tell you. Now, you're going to be doing a couple of things all at once, which I have found success in. Number one, you're adding fish to the system. What do fish do? They produce ammonia from their gills and they produce wastes from pooping and peeing. Number two, you're going to be adding food to the tank because you're going to be feeding your fish. That food is going to be absorbed through the fish from them eating, creating more nutritious wastes, and it's not going to be sitting at the bottom of the tank rotting away, raising your phosphates. Number three, the bacteria that you add at the same time as your fish is going to protect the fish because as ammonia starts to build up in the tank, the bacteria is going to use that for a food source, thus repopulating itself and maintaining and establishing your biological filtration. Now, I then suggest, of course, depending on the size of your tank, that you do not add any other fish to the system for at least a couple of weeks. This is going to allow the bacteria to populate and maintain what it needs to maintain the fish that you have added to the tank. Okay, so I know that might have sounded a little confusing. If you add, say, 2 fish on day 1, you can't turn around on day 3 or 4 and add 2 more. The reason is there's not enough bacteria in the tank yet to establish that high of a populace. You got to let the bacteria build up. So if you add a couple of clownfish, keep adding that bottled bacteria as the instructions advise, and then wait a couple of weeks. Then I would add 1 more fish, and then just wait a few more weeks, let the bacteria adjust to that new source of ammonia, and then just go from there. I would say in the course of a couple of months, you should be able to add just about everything that you want. But just remember, when it comes to adding more livestock, it really is the slower the better. But that's how I cycle tanks, guys, and that's how I recommend everybody cycles a tank. You're going to be preventing a lot of bad things from happening. You're not getting a bunch of phosphates from food rotting in the bottom of the tank. You're going to have livestock that you can enjoy some life to your tank a lot earlier than anybody else doing any other method. And if you're using a good bottled bacteria, your fish are going to be safe. If you guys have any questions, please leave them down in the comments below. And until next time, guys, take care, God bless, and we'll be coming out with part 2 of the Beginner's Guide shortly.